Imagine yourself in New York City with bustling shops and the honking taxis. All the noise, the lights, the people. Now, you find yourself alone again, despite being around everyone. This theme of loneliness and isolation with the American urban and rural setting is explored in Edward Hopper's work through his oil and watercolor paintings, where he shows interest in the introspective moments of his everyday life. Hopper's main goal was not for the skill to be the subject of his work, rather for the scene's mood to be depicted. His artworks followed the norms of modern realism in regards to the subjects, and skillfully portrayed the ugly side of reality and its emotions through the use of more rough and imperfect brushstrokes, as well as being provided equal attention and weighting for all objects. Other than conveying the loneliness in America, he also made the viewers think about the setting and the human beings inside his paintings. Take Nighthawks, for example. In this painting, he highlights the isolated figures located at the diner, sitting across each other, all seemingly lost in their own train of thoughts and disengaged from one another. He also highlights the empty streets, so empty and superficial to the point that there is no trash, while also highlighting the diner through the use of contrast against the street with a sense of warmth and glow from the diner's electric lighting that bleeds into the night city. While some argue that he negatively portrayed loneliness, I don't think so, as he himself preferred to be a quiet and introverted man, portrayed through his figures in his artwork. His silent spaces can affect us when we feel most vulnerable, yet his main goal was only to portray America around him, evident from the fact that he was often inspired by buildings and people he saw in the streets. Rather than melancholy and what many consider to be as isolationism, he saw the streets of New York and saw beauty and serenity. Furthermore, we are left to wonder about their figures, their relationships, and imagine their worlds just like how Hopper did. Hopper's significance comes most significantly from the parodical works inspired from Nighthawks, which may stem from the commonness of feeling emptiness or alienation in an urbanizing modern society. When looking at Hopper's work, we are drawn to the rhythmic and repeated use of simple, crisp, and geometric shapes defined through the lines being used, from the lines of the buildings to the contours of a person. The consistent, straight structured lines and the alternating colors give great structure and form to the metropolitic environment. In contrast, the people have organic lines, which separates them from the background, just like how Hopper may have felt separated from his environment. There is no doubt that this is expressive, and the deliberate unity of these simple forms allow us to pour our own sense of relatability and emotion into the entire scene. For example, windows depicted through quadrilaterals are used all throughout his painting to provoke our curiosity and think about figures inside them. Furthermore, he combined this with the use of space through a linear perspective that leads us through the painting from the right side of the warm diner, where the primary light source is again there to remind us about the darkness of the city in the left. Next, we see that the painting uses a split complementary color palette, giving it less visual tension and more interest and variety. Less tension and heightened interest allows for the viewer to be comfortable to explore their own emotions, and the contrast in the warm yellow creates an unstable environment that makes the diner feel awkward, similar to how Hopper may have felt. This is emphasized through the asymmetrical balance of the value of the painting, as people first look at the diner as a whole. However, even in the diner where he may have felt solitude, he felt a sense of warmth and solace, portrayed by the bright warm lighting, even if he couldn't relate to the others that were there. As I have already stated before, Hopper was inspired by his surrounding for his paintings. However, they were created by a process of imaginative reconstruction in which both his observation and memory played parts. This is why his paintings exaggerate the feeling of isolation, as that was a perception of the world around him, as he even stayed alone while painting. He was influenced from previous realism artists like Gustave Courbet through the use of color that were authentic and familiar to make us think, but almost counterintuitively a sense of mystery. He was also inspired by impressionist artists like Monet, which is reflected in his meticulous attention to the use of lighting to convey mood. This is achieved through his medium of oil paint, blending to create different values of shadows, which tied to the general realism of the entire painting. Furthermore, in a world where movies and directors were being recognized for their play with light and creative use of static camera angles, he incorporated the light and angles that were used in these movies, which we can see from his paintings. One might even say that these characters that Edward Hopper saw on the big screen he could not relate with, and thus he still felt isolation and aimed to depict the isolation that he felt in his artworks. In a world where technology was developing every day just like it is now, Hopper found isolationism.